Streaming and recording has been started.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Council for Strategic Affairs Distinguished Lecture Series. Today, we are having a presentation on Maldives. Is Maldives a permanent threat to strategic interests of India? And our distinguished speaker is Dr. Saptarishi Basu. Today is January 28th, Sunday. It is 10 a.m. Eastern Time in US and 8:30 p.m. in India. So a little bit about Council for Strategic Affairs. CSA imparts education in the field of international relations. CSA fosters discussion, dialogue, and debate on geopolitical issues. CSA encourages studies in strategic field in general to raise the level of awareness. We encourage publication of articles on geopolitics. We condemn terrorism in all forms worldwide. And CSA aims to contribute towards world peace and prosperity. We have a monthly roundtable discussion that is usually on second Saturday of each month. We have a monthly guest lecture. Usually it is on fourth Saturday, but this time we are having on a Sunday. We also have a feature called one-on-one interview that is called Strategically Speaking with Dr. Adityanji. We organize symposia, meetings, and conferences, and we promote publication of articles on geopolitics and related subjects. We have a summer internship program for college students and a fellowship training program also. So the distinguished speaker today is Dr. Saptarishi Basu. He has a very, I would say, multi-dimensional experience. He's a mariner. He is a marine engineer, naval structural architect with 25 years of experience in design engineering services like shipbuilding, conversion projects. He's worked as a consultant, chief engineer, site supervisor, technical superintendent. He has multiple diplomas and degrees. He is a very widely read author. He has published widely and has appeared in various think tanks. So I don't want to belabor his resume, which is very long. We straight away want to go on to the subject, which is Maldives and strategic and security threats it poses to India, or it does not pose to India. So you can see this map of Maldives in Indian Ocean. These are the various islands of Maldives. Again, various islands of Maldives. Before I hand over the platform to Dr. Saptarishi Basu, some housekeeping announcements. Please mute yourself to avoid noise interference. Please change your cell phone setting to vibration mode. Please do not try to interrupt our distinguished speaker. Only those members of audience who identify themselves openly will be allowed to pose questions, no anonymous questioners. All the questions have to be sent by chat function. Please be precise in asking a specific question. Don't send lengthy comments in the form of a monologue. Lastly, this session is being simultaneously live streamed on YouTube, and it will be available on our website within next 24 hours. So without further ado, it's my distinct pleasure to invite our distinguished speaker, Dr. Saptarishi Basu. Welcome, sir. Kindly unmute yourself.
Thank you very much, Dr. Adityanji, for giving me this opportunity. Uh, Thank you for the generous introduction. I'll just share two opening statements before I hop onto the presentation, where I will focus strictly on the topic on hand, and later on we can go into the larger geopolitical aspect in the question answer session. But I will keep focus strictly on the slides. I will not read out the slides. Slide will be open for people to read as per their interests, while I will be giving my narration at the background. My opening statements are that what is being viewed right now as a spat in Twitterati between few over enthusiastic, we can say, junior ministers of Maldives and few nationalist celebrities in India is nothing what it seems on the surface. If we can most modestly describe the situation right now, I would put it in perspective of India as very similar to what America had it on its hand when it had the Cuban Missile Crisis, or the kind of compulsions which led Russia to carry out a full scale invasion of Ukraine, very much knowing the geopolitical and geoeconomic consequences of the same. The challenges in front of India are such serious. So, not wasting any further time, I will go on the presentation straight away. With your permission, sir.
Please share.
The presentation is Maldives, a clear and direct present danger to national security, a threat perspective analysis. Now, this we start referring to one incident which happens in 2021. There, a popular president is there who is elected, who is a Speaker of the Parliament. He is India centric and he intends to have a good relationship with our country. He is attacked by an IED by an Al Qaeda, or rather ISIS operative, who happens to be ISIS recruiter. The speaker gets very seriously injured. His life is saved, but there are few fatalities to start with. This is one important aspect, turning aspect, which draw the attention of the Indian security agencies towards Maldives. But was it the first time? Unfortunately not. We will delve into detail. This is one of the incidents we start with. The terrorist trend started with the 2007 Maldives square blast, which left just 12 tourists, uh, mostly in a injured position. Then there was in April 15, 2020, a speedboat attack or an attack on few speedboats where Islamic State claimed the responsibilities in Maldives. Then again, as we said, Mohammad Nasheed, the former president and the speaker, got injured, and most of the youth are basically subscribing to the two most deadliest Islamic terror organization, that is ISIS and Al Qaeda. Prior the birth of ISIS and its becoming an state unto itself in Baghdad, uh, that is Iraq, after the fall of the Ba'athist regime. Uh, Al Qaeda was the predominant group where the Maldivian youth will subscribe their ideological influence to. Later on, it started dwindling their ranks and moving to ISIS. Today, ISIS-K is one of the major recruiters of Maldives, having the highest number of volunteers per capita in anywhere in the world. Now they have uh, started a publication that is called Voice of Hind, a jihadist propaganda magazine which basically portrays India as the usurper of the Islamic rule which the Mughal and other dynasty had, and they are calling the Muslim youths to wage a war against the greater Indian population and the government of the day to return to Islamic supremacy. And this has ideological links with organizations as IM, Indian Mujahideen, which is now banned, and erstwhile PFI, which is now also proscribed organization, and any organizations which were of similar types in behind. Mostly these terrorist footprints can be connected and dated back to uh, Lashkar-e-Taiba, which is now moving its headquarters to Maldives due to certain facilitation of movement and visa requirements which we have given to the Maldivian people. If you see Maldives geography, it's one of the most sparsely populated uh, country in the world, which is geographically dispersed. While many countries are sparsely populated, if we see the examples of Egypt, we see the example of Australia, we see the example of Canada, that only a certain section of the country is densely populated, rest is vacant. Maldives also has the surface area or the landmass dispersed in somewhere around 1,190 islands, and these islands are in coral reef atolls, and what is there is that group of islands in the coral reef form a ring barrier in which there are certain uh, islands which are above the water level, barely above the water level, sometimes 1 meter or so, or like a few meters above, and few like 5 to 10 islands are populated, rest are unpopulated. Why we are mentioning this incident are very important that when we basically go into the global transnational criminal trade, which is seaborne, this kind of uninhabited island is one of the most blessing in disguise for any kind of dark organization which want to establish their foothold in seaboard voyages using small crafts. The location of Maldives is very near to the Indian SLOC. One is what we call as the National Conveyor or the Maritime Blue Highway that is stretching from Bab el Mandeb to Suez Canal to the Mediterranean, that is European ports, right to Indian Ocean, and then winding past the Malacca Straits to Singapore and then going into the South China Sea and Australia and other places. So this maritime traffic goes near what we know very famously as 90-degree parallel, where we have our islands Lakshadweep, and just about 270 miles south of it, we have this Maldives, and some of the islands are even nearer to that. So giving a very, very close proximity through which the entire global population, global maritime trade routes carrying 80% of the energy trade and something around 70% by volume. And for India, 50% of its gross bulk cargo is transited for this region. The maritime activity in Indian Ocean has been increasing as the globalized work economy and the conveyor system of business process outsourcing started from the center of production to center of consumption. And initially, the Eastern Bloc in the world were the center of consumption, while the Western Bloc was center of production. And it reversed somewhere in mid 70s, 80s, where the Eastern Bloc of the world became the center of production, while the Western took over the role of center of consumption, and the conveyor has ever been moving ever since. India's strategic priority is to keep its burgeoning EXIM trade safe from attack and interference, as it has been the lifeblood of economy of any country, and they have similar concerns. If you see, this is the maritime trade highway, and all the anchor signs are deep-rooted, deep harbors, and the thick lines represent the global major shipping routes, and the thin lines are the auxiliary routes of shipping which are taken shape, which are in use. What are the major irritants in the relation? First of all, political instability. That was a political instability during the predecessor of the same party, Mr. Muhammad Yamin's rule, which has returned with a vengeance in Muhammad Muizu's tenure, and the dictatorial approach which was there in his predecessor, his mentor, has been brought out with a multiplication effect by his prodigy, now instinct with him, that is Mr. Muhammad Muizu, who has been seen locking up dissenting journalists, arranging attacks on dissenting voices and influencers, and today locking out most of the parliamentarians of the opponent party outside the parliament today. What is another important uh, problem here is the socio-economic instability, Islamic radicalization, and what is very important is the burgeoning transnational organized criminal network, which we will see in few maps, a few slides from here. Another risk which I was stating initially as the Cuban Missile Crisis moment for India is the Chinese string of pearls. Though China had been vying for influence in the uh, similar conditions in uh, most of our IOC, that is Indian uh, Ocean region members, that is the BIMSTEC members, when it has been trying to surround India in a garret. Everybody knows what string of pearls is by now. Maldives has signed an agreement with China before, and now it has signed about 20 odd MOUs. And as if we take opponents' version seriously, 100 odd secret agreements with China, making it a very, very important base for Chinese operations. And this is what happens when China gets control of the Maldives, which is basically like a toll station near the highway of maritime routes of transport and international commerce. China gets the power to disrupt India's EXIM trade or ability to secure its own trade route and create immense problem for the Indian peninsular area's defense establishments. As we have just discussed, China has been trying to have solid control over the string of pearls strategy. China, before COVID, were one of the top visitors in the islands before the COVID and the zero COVID policy of Mr. Jinping locked up most of its uh, inhabitants inside buildings, often without food and water. So the Chinese tourism stopped, and it has been lately on the ebb due to the steep economical downturn in China and the reduction in spending power of the average Chinese. But China has been a big detriment in the India-China of relation and India-Maldives relation. And while it severely and very vociferously defends any interference in Taiwan, the double standard of China is reflected when they create similar interference in China and say that Indian Ocean is no country's backyard. Now, the predecessor Muhammad Yamin had told the Indian counterparts he was more diplomatic than Mr. Muizu, that his uh, tango with China is purely economic in nature. But from the time Chinese have come, their gifting of projects of the China Maldives Friendship Bridge has led to something called the bridge diplomacy, where each and every superpower, both being China and India, have been trying to upstage one another, building bridges for Maldives Islands. Thereby, Maldives has been profiting or profiteering against both these countries by playing one against each other, by letting them build their infrastructure at each and every country's own costs. This is the string of pearls, and if you see the destination of the major trade route near Maldives, how close it is from influencing, denying access, and uh, anti-access and area denial strategy to any power which is basically involving in this trade, thereby making the base, an operational base in Maldives, extremely sensitive to control of the maritime trade routes and the global commerce. We have seen what happens when the wrong people start exercising control in what has happened recently when Houthis have been firing missiles at international ships, thereby creating serious problems in the international trade and commerce. After the fall of Mr. Yamin and when the last government came in power, India started the UTF Harbour project in similar manner in order to uh, build capacity. They also tried to build a harbor and a police station in order to aid capacity building and fight crime, which is quite prevalent in Maldives. For the police station, we also tried to build capacity of the Maldivian force for combat readiness and ability for self-defense. All this was uh, uh, for it's all this was exploited and falsely interpreted as India's operational naval base in Maldives, and then they said uh, that it is an infringement on the sovereignty of the island nation, where the truth and hypocrisy or irony would have died as several thousand deaths that the same predecessor government had sold out the 60 islands of his country to the highest bidder in a corrupt deal. And actually, there is no need for India to have an operational base because the reason for a naval base is for capacity or a sea route extension, while the operational distance is only hardly few hundred or thousand nautical miles, which is well within the capacity of the Indian naval forces to dominate without refueling. So it is more important as a naval base for China rather than that of India. Chinese have started influence operation after opening an embassy in Maldives, and as they always have done, they have had social media engineering, started social media campaign, used fake propaganda, and then whatever development activity was carried out in Abu City that was uh, shown as India's direct influence and capture of the island nation. And it started with the attack on the International Yoga Day, which is well known by people. And we can understand that, speaking strategically, Maldives leaders might have been tempted to use the China card for getting more funds and more bargaining power with India, with China, Maldives, Friendship Bridge, and India uh, bridges have basically given them capacities to build infrastructure at not their cost, but the cost of the other countries which are investing uh, in Maldives. China's debt trap policy is a very worrisome situation in India, where Maldives, with very limited and very small capacity to manufacture anything rather than having tourism, and very limited natural resources and production capabilities, almost having no agriculture of its own, doesn't have the capacity to pay off Chinese debt. In which case, it has been seen that China then debt traps such countries and uses the built up infrastructure for its own strategic uses. This is where India's apprehension about China's debt trapping policy is most worrisome. And Muhammad Muizu is not only a Chinese stooge, if we can say, he's a pretty bad actor. He has the trappings of a pure Salafist ideologue. His winning of presidency is not a person who is compromised on financial or some other reason to be with China, or rather is basically hamstring to follow China. This person actively hates India and its inhabitants. His wife, as we will see, is a Salafist. His ideology is purely anti-Indian, and his actions have been focused under a geopolitical axis we know as PRIC. For clarification, Pakistan, Russia, Iran, Korea, North Korea, and Turkey. These are the countries which is forming a geopolitical axis against the West, most of them being hegemonic dictatorships. Maldives, this person's ideological alignment is towards this grouping. These are the various uh, MOUs, list of some 20 MOUs which has been signed by this person when he has gone to China. You can see and read for itself. Some of them are innocuous, like fisheries and development. What is very concerning is item number 5. Memorandum of Cooperation between China Media Group and Public Service Media of Republic of Maldives. This essentially gives government media to Chinese control for carrying out its information warfare and information operations on the Maldivian people, thereby turning most of them into anti-Indian or probably anti-Indian operatives, which can be used for terrorism on Indian soil. Equally disturbing is the item number 14, where cooperation on low carbon and uh, carbon type technologies. We are not aware till what kind of technologies are being going to be transmitted to Maldives. Is it nuclear in nature? Whether it is, let us say, uh, low carbon technologies related to certain kind of mineral wealth exploitations or subsea exploitations. Such things have multiple uses in the military domain, dual uses, and can be used to detriment of the country. Again, you see item number 20, where there is again a public service media of Republic of Maldives and Xinhua news agencies of People's Republic of China have an MOU, that is to broadcast Chinese influence into Maldivian population. Now let's examine the center stage of the popular debate, which is the Maldivian, what we know as the Maldivian tourism, of which we are very proud of. To start with, if we sum up the entire discussion of Maldivian tourism in one line, it started off with ill-gotten mafia money from the Italian mafia being passed off in these islands, and then it migrated to uh, greater a scam where Mr. Yamin, the erstwhile president, tourism minister Muhammad Adib, carries out a heist of not less than $1.5 billion of money laundering and robs their own citizens something around 79 to 80 million dollars in sale of not one, not two, not five, not 10, but 60 of its islands. And they have, and this person has been arrested. Now he's facing terrorism charges and is presently jailed. What is very, very interesting here that had this influence been or this information been linked or leaked by any of the Indian media outlet or any Western media outlet, people would have immediately commented on the nefarious motive of the Western news agency. Maldives is a Islamic uh, extremist paradise, and the news about this entire feast has been leaked none other than Al Jazeera, which happens to be run by Qatar, which is again an hardline Islamic fundamentalist country, which has this news media outlet, which is basically its own influence operation. And it is remarkable that this media outlet is also a Hamas supporter. It is this media outlet which has broken this uh, entire proverbial storm in the cup of tea, as some very learned general has said. And it started with when the news was broken when some Bal- Baglioni Hotels, an Italian uh, hotel chain, grabbed certain islands by paying few amount of money, about $2.25 million, from a news magnate to the Maldivian government and also the politicians' private funds or private entities. So this is Mr. Baglioni on top of this picture. The hotel is in the picturesque hotel and the resorts are in the main insert, and the main person responsible, Mr. Ahmad Adib, the at that time Minister of Tourism. He has been the main facilitator of this feast. Why it is called this? Because this was direct party to party, government to party sale without an open tendering, and no third party was notified. It was a hush hush deal where the government got something around $2.5 million. The people carrying out the feast were given $2.5 million, and the party got the control of the island at somewhere around $10 million, sorry, $5 million, while the actual cost of the island would have been somewhere around $10 million for a similar feast, similar actual sale. So what happened was the exchequer lost $7.5 million of tax revenue or sale revenue of the lease from their from their coffers, while the profiteers, that is the businessman, got the island at half the price, and the politicians made something around $2.5 million out of 10 years. This is the fact that Maldives has, who talks about today's sovereignty, has actually made the entire hotel paradise out of selling the very sovereignty to private bidders for making infrastructure. Now, when a Chinese tourist comes out of China, which is a very closed and oppressive society, he goes on a rampage when he goes to these Asian countries. Therefore, if you happen to travel in any of the ASEAN countries, Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, and you happen to ask a guide about Chinese tourists, some of them have many comments which are despicable at the best and can be reserved for closed room whispers. The reason of such hatred against Chinese people is that wherever they go, they indulge in two things. drugs and prostitution, and they go on it on a vengeance. If you see, there are one of the biggest problems facing this island nation is not only terrorism, but also uh, a dangerous mix of transnational organized crime, starting from child prostitution, woman trafficking, which is one of the highest rate in Maldives. Maldives has a restricted population of 500,000, 5 lakh people plus, and if we can see, 30,000 immigrant Bangladeshis on record are there in Maldives, predominantly for hotel applications, and most of them are sold into sex slavery. Child prostitution is also one of the most serious issues in Maldives. The reason is clear. If you see this map, most of the women, something around 30,000 from the Bengal region, that is Bangladesh, West Bengal region, are being transshipped to the Middle East. And while they are taken on the sea route, if they are not taken by the Mumbai route, Maldives is the earliest stop. And if it is going to the sub-Saharan African dictators, if these women are sold into slavery, Maldives happens to be right in the middle of this traffic. Now, if you see, another thing which comes along with illegal trade uh, of women is illegal trade in drugs. Unfortunately, on both sides of India, we have the Golden Crescent and the Golden Triangle. So there is a very heavy traffic across India for the narcotic pipeline from three bordering states in the west, that is Punjab, Rajasthan, and Goa, to West Bengal and Northeast, where it is going into Thailand and Cambodia and Laos. Along with that, you see this red line. This is where the narcotic traces and Maldives atolls sit right across this narcotics trade. So opium, coca, amphetamines, psychological accelerators, all of these go to Maldives in uh, uh, in a big manner. This is another map, though I'm very sorry that the resolution is not very clear. It clearly shows the traffic of the opiates, which is crossing right near the edge of the Indian Peninsula near Sri
Kindly
Lanka.
move your slides. Your slides are not moving. You need to manage your slide presentation also as you are speaking. It's stuck at slide number 1.
It is not moving, sir.
Please advance your slides.
I have advanced my slides, sir.
It's stuck
I
at
will.
slide number 1, the title slide. It needs to move forward.
Oh my God. I will stop the presentation, and I will again share my slide. Okay. And can you see this slide, sir?
Yes, yes. Okay, now we are.
Can you see this slide?
Yeah,
Has it changed? Has it changed?
yeah, they are moving now.
I'm sorry, I missed most of the slides. Oh, they were actually meant. This I will just for the view. This was the slide for women trafficking, as I was trying to explain the map, and this was the slide for the narcotics traffic, which where this line, the red line I showed, is going cutting across Maldives. Another slide showing the same, and this was the slide showing the weapon trafficking, illegal weapons traffic, which was going through very soon. And if you see, somewhere around the this place is a major trade route for illegal and medium scale and large weapons, rather medium scale weapons. If you see, uh, Pakistan ISI has a very big footprint in Maldives. Pakistan is known for illegal weapons manufacturing Dera Ghazi Khan in open markets. which comes through these island nations before it is uh, marketed to terrorist groups across in sub-Saharan Africa and in Yemen and other countries. So, after such a dark history, where most of the countries' assets or the tourism infrastructure was built on East money, and it has so bad connections and terrorist history. Why did it become most favorite destination for Indian tourists? Reason is one of the two celebrities and many celebrities who have been visiting in India, in Maldives, and Maldives government pays the same infrastructure which involves all these nefarious activities. The tourism sector pays these influencers, these celebrities, huge amount of money to come and promote them, the Maldives tourism, as brand ambassadors in their Instagram and social media, which causes Indians and their followers to flock to these locations. One of the two stars, as you can identify in the insert, is Visakhapatnam and Tagashra. As of today, Maldives, Maldives jihadist infrastructure has become a hub of a new base of anti-India operation. Pakistani Lashkar-e-Taiba has made deep inroads into the Maldives population post tsunami by their uh, social activities and their run charities which came to their aid. And it also started funding people for education, which was again carried out in madrasas in Pakistan, which led to their extreme anti-India radicalization, and they were sent in back to the population to spread their ideologies like an infection. India has seen that extradition of terror groups like SIMI, Indian Mujahideen, all these have tried to come to Maldives after the crackdown. These people, the PFI, the Indian Mujahideen, the Lashkar-e-Taiba, these people's operatives, in order to escape the Indian agencies' dragnets, most of them have sought refuge in Maldives out of Indian, uh, uh, let us say, oversight. So if you now see all this picture together, you will understand why there is an outrage on 70, 80 Indian soldiers. It is nothing to do with the sovereignty per se. It is just that they don't want this oversight to happen while they carry out all these activities. Now they have extreme uh, radicalist organization which have a significant sway on the population, and they have found parties like the Islamic Foundation of Maldives and the Adalat parties. These use basically Shariat law as tools of government, and they form extreme groups on the concept of defending Islam. And they generally are responsible for creating front organizations which have subscription to the ISIS, and they are recruiters for LET, and they are recruiters for our various extremist terrorist organizations. The problem is that these kind of organizations also have political outputs which heavily influence the Maldivian politics at present. As I said, even Lashkar-e-Taiba made a front organization called Khidmat-e-Khalq, was used for the post-tsunami operation. Now, if you see how this activities has spawned out, Maldivians were very much hand in glove in the 26/11 attacks, that is way back in 2008 in Mumbai. All of us have known this attack. I have borrowed this from Goa Chronicles by Mr. Xavier Rodriguez. I'm thankful for this nationalist person's investigative journalism because I have borrowed some items from him. The person who is of interest in this attack is Muhammad Zilian. His nationality number is mentioned. This person had played almost similar role to what we know as David Hadley Chase. He was the initial person who carried out the intelligence, the Reiki, and the targeting factors and analysis, route, escape map, all plannings, and they were assisting the handlers, Mr. Lakhvi and Major Shahid in Pakistan. And this truth was not confirmed by anybody else but their ex-president, Muhammad Nasheed, when they sat in an interview with Indian Media House. And they said that we have, I will read in verbatim here, yes, we have a serious issue with Islamic radicals. We know that many are being trained by Al Qaeda in north reaches of Pakistan. Some Maldivians have been arrested by Pakistani authorities after they crossed into Pakistan from India. The recruitment by Islamic radicals takes place in Maldives, and the channel movement is up to Pakistan. They are getting trained in Al Qaeda to fight a war in Afghanistan. I believe that the identity of all the dead terrorists in Mumbai attack has not been broken down to nationalities. See, this is what the president is saying. I feel there is a Maldivian connection to Mumbai attacks. Well, we have information of the families of terrorists who are still in Maldives about this. So some of those people, about the 10 dastardly people, were from Maldives. This is Muhammad Zilian. He happened to be, this is one of his photographs, and he has connections with Lashkar-e-Taiba, and he, this entire thing was confirmed by a CIA analyst, Mr. Bruce Riedel, saying that the Major Pasha and Sajid Mir conducted this attack in order to start a war between India and Pakistan. Last but not the least, the same terrorist organizations had also threatened the World Cup in India. Not many of us know that these uh, terrorist organizations had put their crosshairs on the World Cup in India. There is a magazine called Habiru. They cited Interpol officials confirming that two Maldivian attacks were uh, involved along with Pakistani nationals to derail the World Cup project. Now we have all heard about the caged parrot incident where Shah Nawaz and Shad Warsi, two people were arrested in Delhi terror module. They're planning attack in 4 states in India. Coming to this very important presentation slide, if you due to paucity of time, I will go to state point number 5. Maldivian President Dr. Muhammad Mansour is related to President Jamia Salah Sheikh Abdullah bin Muhammad through marriages. That means his brother-in-law to this extremist organization president. He is an extreme Salafist ideologue. And this president of Jamia Salah is directly connected with ISI and LET. So we now you will know whom we are dealing with is not a normal politician. He is an extremist ideologue, and this organization has done an institution capture by instituting him as a president. Now, emerging threat scenario, we will go through this very importantly. What we can see, Maldives has the most important uh, 5 important ingredients of becoming what we call a terrorist and organized crime black hole. Extremely corrupt population and weak law and order machinery, impoverished and politically disenfranchised poor population, highly radicalized population with strong religious organizations leading it, criminal conglomerate with all facets of organized crime like prostitution, sex slavery, human trafficking, drugs, weapons, and an institution captures, as we said. It's a fertile breeding ground for dangerous proscribed organization. Now, Proximity of Maldives to Somalia and Yemen also gives uh, harbor to Yemeni, um, uh, let us say, pirates. And like UIC Al Shabaab, they may represent a Battle of Britain like scenario where our island gets attacked from all different uh, at places coordinated by some handlers in Maldives. It is a very dangerous situation for our existing trade. The development Moses stand on the Maldivian issue. Maldivian president has not acknowledged the presence of foreign fighters in this region. The reason why he wants 70 odd people and few harmless uh, drone helicopters out so that he can bring in the Turkish drone army and the Chinese army to rule the roost in his island. He's basically handing over his country to China so that the spy vessels and offensive China's naval capability can be few hundred miles from the Indian, uh, let us say, peninsula. Now, even if there is a lack of clarity in Indian involvement post Musu rise to power. Now, economically, our options are very limited, but we can focus on the strategy. If there is a counter from China, this involvement could there can be an involvement and nexus and the lobby to counter at the time of Mahmoud Azhar. So we can basically have abductions, shipjackings, and similar extremist actions carried out. Link between political leaders and rise of extremism is showing a trend. And Mr. Muhammad Mizu is an extremely effective leader. This I have borrowed from the group itself, that this person who is basically being puppeted by Chinese is saying that we are a very sovereign nation, we can't be bullied. Indian authorities must find and way to either diplomatically agree with Mr. Moisi or remove him from this scenario. And considering his anti-India sentiment and his coming to power is not a surprise. If they can, Pakistan and China can position their troops in Maldives, we need to immediately bolster our security in Lakshadweep Islands. Tourism in Maldives has a very dark side. If patriotic Indians still go to Maldives, it is akin to funding our own national funeral. And most importantly, right-thinking people in Maldives can be educated about the detriment this person is causing them. And now there are 10 diplomatic options which I leave open for the people. We can basically stop the line of credit and mortgage few islands for positioning our own troops there if we are forced to abdicate. And basically we should not leave the island anywhere before 17th of March because that is when his elections are there. We have to immediately cut supplies to Maldives for going from our mainland in order to basically make the population, the supportive population, feel the heat of their strategic decisions. Internationally, the issue of terrorist harboring of Maldives has to be exposed in all international media, and we can also provoke such people to carry out attacks against, uh, let us say, Chinese incidents or Chinese engineers to basically get them out of, like we did in Balochistan. What is very important, what is an important challenge is also an important opportunity. What is very important is that if we go to point number 12, we can explain to the radicalized population of Maldives that Muizu is carrying out munafiq or profiteering by shaking hands with Raifing, who happens to be the biggest enemy of Islam, and what he has done to Uyghur people by outbreeding them, destroying their mosques, editing their version of Quran and all the anti-Islamic activities and the breeding of Han Uyghur women with Han Chinese males. This should be done. And last but not the least, India should stop recognizing the One China policy and open a full-scale diplomatic mission in Taiwan to give them back in the same coin as they have done to us. And with this, I'll stop my presentation and I give the call back to Dr. Adityanji. Thank you for your opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Basu, for very extensive presentation. Unfortunately, in the beginning of the presentation, your slides were not moving, so people were not able to correlate what you were saying with the extensive material you had in your PowerPoint presentation. We will quickly take a couple of questions that are there in the chat room. First is from Dr. Minarul, and the question is, if India reacts much in matters of Maldives' behaviors towards India, that can bring Maldives closer to China, pushing India further towards more strategically disadvantageous position. I would like to have your expert opinion on this thinking.
Like, I would be very, very clear on this that this person cannot be cajoled towards India. There is nothing like if you push him too hard, he will go to China's lap. He has chosen China's visit and Turkey's visit as a replacement for India that shows his clear distaste against Indians as a nation and a race. His comments shown by junior ministers show the racist attitude this person has against India. So there is nothing that can convince an ideologically driven person to cooperate with us. So no matter what you do, you will not be able to buy his favors. His demands will always be unreasonable, and he is there to harm your interest. He is no friend of yours. If he is not an enemy, he can be directly said that he has got serious dislike of the Indians as a culture and as a nation. So no amount of restraint or no amount of, uh, let us say, rod will change his ideologically skewed and anchored position.
Thank you, Dr. Basu. Next question is from Dr. Vineet Singh. We hear dynamics of Maldivian society changing, especially in the past 15 years. I wonder if dynamics within India post 2014 led to some overreaction there and the politicians used some undercurrent anti-India feelings to bolster their prospects. And now it has gone out of hand. Any comments?
Maldivians gave way to the Salafist movement post tsunami. That was when Khidmat-e-Khalq was set up. But if you see, we have committed a blunder by trying to save Maldives when Tamilians were taking over. People say it's a heroic event by sending Indian troops to defend against LTTE. What has come about today, with so many number of people directly planning attacks on Indian soil, is even more dangerous than LTTE, and it is going to get international support. To start with, point number one. Point number two, the resurgent India 2014 plus and the opening of Ram Mandir and the resurgence of the Hindu population has been the chief target of ISI Madarsa education syllabus. So if you prosper, if you are a Hindu, you will be always in the crosshairs of highly radicalized Pakistan trained population. But again, these things can go out of hand, like TTP. TTP was their own prodigy which tried to bring Shariat law to Pakistan, which was again resisted by the state. Now they're killing them. They're basically teaching the master the taste of their own medicine. So similarly, such things can happen. What happened in Balochistan may happen in Maldives as well. If these people recognize China as the real enemy of Islam and turn against the Chinese people, then China will feel that all the money they have thrown over to Maldives to basically embolden their radicalized population has good money gone down the waste.
Thank you, Dr. Basu. There are a couple of observations I'll make before we end because there are no more questions. So you have rightly said that, it was a mistake to save the government of Mr. Gayoom in 1988 when India sent 1,600
He started the
prize,
radicalization.
prize service contingent. It was okay because one of the rival businessmen had hired mercenaries belonging to the plot, PLOTE, a Tamil terrorist group based in Sri Lanka, to upstage the coup. It was okay to restore the power, but there should have been strings attached at that point in time. So we lost a lot of time. We have to understand the history that historically Maldives was a British protectorate. And in 1976, when it got full independence from Britain, that protectorate was gone. Britain kept, I think, air base till middle of 80s when it finally closed the shop. And as the successor state to British Empire, India should have exercised its influence. I'm not saying hegemony or suzerainty, but I think there was a case for maintaining protectorate status so that you could influence the events. What has happened that this island, the population has got highly radicalized. There are like families, corrupt families that are controlling the power, and there has been anti-incumbency feeling after each election since the open election started. So, there may be some India friendly party in power for 5 years, but the next government that comes is opposing. Maldivian people are now regretting their actions. In most recent election for mayor of Male, the opposition won. As we speak today, in the parliament of Maldives, they were fist fighting, pulling of hairs for confirmation of the ministers in Moizu administration. So there's an infighting going on. Maldives is not only just under influence of China, but you mentioned about Pakistan ISI, highest number of per capita radicalization and recruitment by the ISIS. Bangladeshi factor, that Bangladeshi private individuals who are working in various situations, 30,000 or so, they are also hotbed of spreading radicalism in that country. Over a period of time, these small nations in India's vicinity in Indian subcontinent have been playing India against China, whether it was Sri Lanka or Maldives or other nations, and demanding concessions in a competitive manner. Same thing happened in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka denied permission now to a research vessel for 1 year for China. Now those research vessels are stationed in Maldives. What are they doing? They are basically plotting the maritime domain so that Chinese nuclear powered submarine can come and stay in Indian Ocean. That is what is happening. And there has always been an element of Maldives-based spies affiliated with extremist, radicalist, jihadist organizations. This is nothing new. This has been going on for decades. Nothing new. Even prior to 26/11, there were Maldivian origin spies and women that will sort of do honey trapping, nuclear scientists and missile scientists and all that sort of thing. So this story has been going on. 25% of Maldives teachers are trained in India. Almost 50% of Maldives doctors are trained in India. I think we need to take a very, very strict viewpoint now that no more you will be engaging Maldives by doing unilateral concessions. Everything needs to become transactional. And we need to work with the opposition at this point in time, because if this person, Dr. Muizu, lasts for 5 years, very, very serious harm will be done to India's strategic interests. So it has to be nipped in the bud. But again, we need to have a larger vision as to how to deal with this threat. And you cannot, I would certainly not say go to United Nations and try to get it declared, because you will get bogged down. This is your own backyard. You have to sort things out by your own way. And with the future government in Maldives, any assistance should be conditional on Maldives becoming again a protectorate of India. Without having that kind of influence on a long-term basis, you would not be able to predict what is going to happen with the next government, because your influence lasts for 4.5 years only, if at all the government lasts long. So you have to think of permanent security, maritime security architecture in Indian Ocean region. We have to understand that, it's a small nation. India is huge. India's actually security needs are huge. And sometimes you have to become the big brother. India has been alleged to be the big brother, and we are lost. We are like a deer caught with headlights every time a crisis comes. So you have to have some cool, rational thinking and exercise the influence and power. That is what great powers do. They do power projection, and there's need to do power projection in Indian Ocean region, neutralize the Chinese threat as well as neutralize the Islamist threat, whether that is coming from Pakistan, Bangladesh, ISIS, or Turkey or Turkey, because Turkey is very much involved at this point in time. So it will depend upon the wisdom of the government of India how we deal with it, but there is need for very firm and very strong measures in near future. Otherwise, this will get out of control. This will be giving not just a toehold, it will be giving a base to China in Indian Ocean, permanent base to China in Indian Ocean, next to India, and that is what we have to prevent. So I thank you for your very extensive presentation. I also thank
May I
our.
have only one comment which I would like to make in response? Just
Sure.
1 minute.
Okay.
What we understand here is not only the fact that China is able to operate a spy vessel to do steal bathymetric data. If you see, China has developed something like quantum radars. Quantum radar can detect stealth ships and stealth aircraft. In addition, they can do something. They can do electromagnetic warfare on the avionics. That explains loss of our several helicopters in the Arunachal Pradesh region, which has basically suddenly fallen from heights, killing all its inhabitants. So similar activities can be carried out, harming our aviation and naval aviation security in the archipelago and the southern tip by these kind of spy vessels. And
I think
secondly, we must.
China threat remains. Let's not bring out certain things in open. We have to take preventive actions. We have to do power projection, because it's a small country and its interests are very different from our interests. We have to prevent further radicalization, further recruitment of ISIS, terrorists from this country, and nip the threat in the bud. That is what great powers do. And if we have to follow the trajectory of great powers, we will have to assume postures that are tough, that require tough decisions, but ultimately help us. Otherwise, we'll be facing this crisis every 2-3 years, that a rival party or a rival faction or a rival family in Maldives does something else. There's one last comment I would like to make, that at one point in time, Maldives government had that audacity to demand, and at that time their population was 300,000, that if under global warming their nation is, consumed by the rising sea level, India should give them a sovereign territory on Indian mainland for 300,000 people that should not be governed by Indian law. That was the ridiculous demand done by Maldives government. Of course, 2021 has gone and passed, and Maldives is still not, overtaken by the rising sea level. But it tells you the entitlement attitude, that you want to have a sovereign land which India should give them free of cost in case their country is wiped away. So we have to guard our own interests. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Team CSA, for helping me organize this talk. And we hope that Dr. Basu will keep on coming to our platform. This is not the first time he has been on our platform. He has been on our platform before as well. Thank you very much indeed. We are running out of time. Namaskar.